Good evening, neighbors and friends. Welcome to our Riverwood Annual Homeowners Association meeting. We're doing it, as you can, obviously, we're doing it virtually tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that we're not answering live questions tonight. We will be, you'll have an opportunity to submit your questions for the next 2 weeks to our website after the conclusion of the meeting. Right now, I'd like to introduce this terrific board that I've been honored to work with all year. First, Tom Conley, member of our ARC committee. We have Mike Foster. Everybody knows Mike. He's Food Truck Friday Mike. Daressa Walls, who is our liaison with our security, our courtesy patrol. We have Paul Westfall, our president. Dr. Janice Tankson, she's our Community Day chairman. We have Greg Ballou, our treasurer. And I'm John Criswell. I've been honored to serve as the communications director. And now I'd like to we're going to share the share video. Thank you.
Conley for administering our association rules for home appearances and tree removal. Hello, I'm Paul Westfall. The year 2020 has brought us tremendous hardships with the coronavirus pandemic. And in the unfortunate event that your family has been affected by it, we suffer with you. I believe it has brought us closer together as many members and their families had to stay at home. Getting to know neighbors around the trails of the lake is a huge benefit and adds to the appreciation of our community. Many neighbors have engaged in home improvement projects. It is visible how certain areas of our community's curb appeal have improved, and that adds value to our homes. Financial situation of our community is solid, and it's a testament to the excellent leadership of this board, and in particular, Greg Ballou, our great treasurer. Capital reserves are being restored, and asset replacement is taking place with funds being available. The all-important Riverwood Beautiful Committee is an ongoing effort with maintenance projects, landscaping projects, the lake embankment, erosion mitigation issues, and fauna and flora that is native being used as much as possible in all of our landscaping issues. You, the homeowners and members of the association, are one of the most important assets, of course, besides the lake and the trails. The Community Day will hopefully take place in 2021, again under the able leadership of Dr. Janice Tankson and her great team of volunteers. Safety and security are top of mind for everybody, and we're pleased with the relative quiet and peace this year. And we thank Daressa Walls, another board member, for her liaison activities with Ambassador. We want to thank John Criswell, who chairs the all-important communication activities and initiatives. Food Trucks Fridays have become very popular, and we thank Mike Foster as we continue that program in the year 2021 every other Friday. We want to thank the ARC members Bob Sweeney, Greg Ballou, and Tom Conley for administering our association rules for home appearances and tree removal. And we need to add here that homeowners are also reminded of local ordinances pertaining to barking dogs and playing loud music after hours. We're very pleased our past due association dues accounts are shrinking. We look forward to the annual meeting being very successful, albeit under difficult and different conditions. This board and future boards are looking forward to serving you in 2021 to make Riverwood even stronger. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to introduce our City of Memphis Mayor, the Honorable Jim Strickland.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. I'm sorry, just give me a moment. Sorry for the delay there. Can you see my screen? Can anybody let me know if you're seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. 2020 has been a rough year, and I want to kind of talk about a couple of issues. I know we're not taking questions tonight, but I do invite you to email me at jim.strickland@memphistn.gov. jim.strickland@memphistn.gov if you have any questions or concerns that you need addressed, and I'd be happy to talk about that. Obviously, the issue that's dominated this year is the coronavirus. This is a little chart I came up with myself to try to compare where we are. The worst month we had was 90 days ago in July, and you can see there what our weekly averages were. Confirmed cases is always a good number to look at. I really focus more on the hospitalizations. As you can see, we had 376 hospitalizations in our worst month on average a day. Right now, this past week, we've been averaging right at 300 or so. So as you've heard the national news talk about, we're in a third wave. What they're talking about is the increase that we had in March or April, then we went down, the increase we had in July, and then we're heading up again, so that they're really worried. When I say the doctors and hospitals here in town are worried about our numbers as we go into Christmas and the new year. This is our positivity rate, and this shows you that those three waves that I was talking about. Our positivity, or even though our numbers aren't, our raw numbers are not where we were in July, the positivity rate is higher. This is where we are on hospital beds. Our latest number comes from November 8th. We had 294 people in the hospital, and the state rates that as a yellow. Anything within 10% of our total capacity would be in the red. Now, I do want to explain capacity. This is under normal capacity for the four big hospitals in Memphis, meaning Baptist, Methodist, St. Francis, and Regional 1, the old Med. Under their normal capacity, we're utilizing 87% of the beds. That's not all with COVID patients, but that's with elective surgeries and other matters. 87% of the beds are used. Every hospital has more capacity that they could enlarge their capacity internally, either a floor or rooms that they have not gone into. In addition to that increased hospital capacity that is potentially there, we have the old commercial appeal building, which the state has built out as a 400-bed hospital. So we have those two. Hopefully we'll never get there, but I just wanted to put that into context as far as hospital utilization. This is our hospitalizations. As I told you, it graphically shows you that we are moving up, not quite where we were in July. Moving in the last 2 weeks or so, the rate of increase has slowed a bit, and hopefully that's good news. This is more of the hospitalization information that I gave you. And see, there's a column there, surge capacity. That is what I'm talking about with respect to the hospitals can expand their own capacity. So normally they have 2,152 rooms for acute care, but they could internally surge to 3,184. And again, that's before you get to the commercial appeal building. Now that is assuming that we can get hospital personnel to service all those rooms, and that is a challenge for the hospitals and for the commercial appeal building. These charts most of these charts I'm going over are released at least on a weekly basis by the Shelby County Health Department. And then at least once a week, I have an update on the coronavirus that you can catch on Facebook. And then occasionally I'll mention this in a Friday email. I send out an email every Friday about city issues, and oftentimes we'll talk about coronavirus. If you're not on that Friday email list, I gave you my email earlier. Just email me and I can add you. I now want to talk about Test to Protect. The testing that's been going on right now is for mostly two folks. Number one, those people who are sick, or number two, those people who've been exposed to somebody who's sick. About 6 months ago, we started working on a program to test asymptomatic people who do not have symptoms. And we were really trying to help schools get back into in-person teaching. So we thought if you could regularly test individuals at a school, it would be another tool that they could use along with masking and social distancing and washing your hands to allow them an opportunity to go back to school safely. We built it, frankly, with Shelby County Schools in mind, and that has not, they have chosen not to go back into school, but there are many private schools in Memphis and charter schools in Memphis who are using this Test to Protect program. We probably have close to 16 to 18 schools that are using this program right now, and it's helping them. Basically, it identifies somebody who's not feeling any symptoms, but who is positive, and gets them out of the school so that they don't infect others. That's the important part of this, is get them out of the classroom so they don't infect others, because they don't feel symptoms, and therefore they just keep going about their normal business. We've had to do many things to get this done. We have incredible labs here at Poplar Healthcare, AEL, Compass Labs, and UT Health Science. We could build up to 30,000 tests per day, and we've dropped the cost of this test from an individual test that cost over $100 when we started this thing several months ago to anywhere between $5 and $30 per test, depending on the exact kind of test that they wanted. We have now opened this process to businesses, particularly restaurants and businesses that interact with the public a lot. But if you have a business that is interested in this kind of testing, please email me and I will connect you to the proper people. Because again, 40% or so of the transmissions of COVID are from people who do not feel symptoms. And therefore, if you test them early and get them out of your place of business, then you can cut down on the number of people who will be infected. Crime has been a challenge in Memphis, well, for decades now, but obviously through my whole time in public office between city council and mayor, but it's gotten worse with COVID-19. It's not unusual. Other cities have felt the same impact. I'm sure people will study this issue who are knowledgeable about it and come up with the reasons. I personally think the reason is because so much of our crime is driven by young people, and the productive outlets for children, whether it be schools, sports, community centers, mentoring programs, have all been greatly reduced or shut down during the pandemic. But the bad influences on children have remained open and available. And I think that's the reason we've seen an increase. This isn't necessarily related to coronavirus, but this shows you there is a direct correlation between the number of police officers and our rate of violent crime. The blue line is the number of officers we have. As we've hired more police officers, our violent crime rate went down, which is the yellow line. But as we lost police officers from 2011 through 2016, crime went up. And as in 2017, as we started hiring more officers, the crime rate went down, except for obviously during the coronavirus, which I've just taken. We use this chart a lot to show the importance of a fully staffed police department. We had a study done that showed we need 2,800 police officers. We have basically 2/3 of that number right now. We try to be able to hire police officers from outside the city, which most cities have, and the city council disagreed with us and took that off the ballot, so you could not vote on this past November. But we will continue to try to grow our police department. Specifically, what's happened this year? Murders and aggravated assaults have greatly increased. Our murder rate is up 63% compared to last year. And let me put that in context. Each year that I've been mayor, we've been able to reduce our violent crime rate. So we were reducing it, and this is a total reversal of that. Aggravated assaults are up 27%. The number of reported violent incidents involving guns are up 19%. And over 65% of all violent crime involves guns, and that's it was just 57, well, not just, but it was 57% 5 years ago. Murders and aggravated assaults usually most every time involve people who know each other and it's a domestic violence incident or some kind of gang activity. But the pandemic's hurt in other ways. The creation of new neighborhood watch groups has slowed. The tips given to Crime Stoppers, 545 cops, but Crime Stoppers, which if you know something about a crime, you can call there and it's totally anonymous and you can get a reward. But those tips are down 10% compared to last year. And again, these trends are throughout the country. We're having a unity walk against gun violence this Saturday. We are following all the health department regulations with masks, and it's outdoors, and we're staying at least 6 feet apart. We'd certainly invite you to take part. That's all the sponsors of that event. I did want to talk a little bit about some positive things that are going on. I truly believe that before the pandemic, Memphis had momentum. We had 20,000 more employees in January of this past year than we did 4 years before. Incredible amount of investment. And last year in 2019, our poverty rate it had dropped in 1 year by like 25 to 30%. It's still too high, but it's the lowest poverty rate we'd had in a couple decades. So things were moving in the right direction. We still had challenges, but things were moving in the right direction. We've gotten a couple awards recently about the assets that we have. We're redoing the fairgrounds into we're going to add a youth sports complex there. And there's a website you can check out. And then we've had a total redo of our convention center. We are a mid-tier convention center city. Nashville's is so much bigger than us. Denver is so much bigger. Chicago and Orlando are so much bigger. But among mid-tier cities, we're a strong city, except that our convention center had become extremely dated. We were able to do this $200 million renovation and modernization without raising taxes and without taking money away from our core city services, basically funded through the hotel motel tax. That is all I have. And I know we're not taking questions, but I don't know how to stop the presentation.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We appreciate you taking some time to spend with us and to share some information with us. We appreciate all that
Thank you.
We hope you have a great
and I
evening.
hope you can turn this off the screen.
All right. So my name is Steve Phipps, and with Wayfind Marketing. And so I would like to go ahead and introduce Brandon McNary from DRM Law Firm, who will share more about the election.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon McNary with Dinklage, Rasmussen, and Mink. I spoke at your last year's annual meeting, so some of you may recognize me. I have been asked to oversee the election of your 2021 Board of Directors. As many of you may know, you were asked to email me, fax me, or mail me your ballots. Your quorum was 10%. You have 1,134 homes. So quorum was 114 people. Excuse me. We had over 240 people participate in the election. I am pleased to announce the results tonight. In no particular order, your 2021 Board of Directors will be Greg Ballou, Tom Conley, John Criswell, Michael Foster, Janice Tankson, Paul Westfall, and Keith Yarmowich. Those are your 7 board members. Your Board of Directors will be meeting in December for their first organizational Board of Directors meeting. At that time, they will elect the officers. The members, you are the members, elect a Board of Directors, and then the board will select the officers: president, treasurer, secretary, vice president, things like that. So after the organizational meeting in December, your Board of Directors will announce to you all, it'll be on your website, email, things of that nature, who the officers are for 2021. I want to thank you all for participating in this year's election and obtaining a quorum so we can elect a Board of Directors. I want to congratulate the 2021 board. I look forward to working with you. And I want to thank the board for 2020. You have been an excellent board to work with, truly top-notch. I know I speak for everybody at my law firm, and we all appreciate everything that you all do for Riverwood Farms, and you all are a pleasure to work with. That's all I have for tonight. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Brandon. Next, we'll hear from Greg Ballou about compliance and financials.
Good evening, folks. Great to see that we had as many people participating as we've got tonight. I believe the number, if I'm correct, Steve, is a little over 240 people participating tonight. So as well as the number of ballots we have a lot of participants tonight. So thank you for that. If we would get to the next slide, please. This year, the board had 3 financial goals for fiscal year 2020. I think that before I start that, I would like to just give a big shout out to Joyce and Libby at Keith Collins for their support through this challenging year and helping get this information together so that we could present it to you tonight. Back to the financial goals, there were the 3 goals that you see before you. Adequately fund our capital reserves fund, which requires an $85,000 year-end balance. Keep in mind that throughout this discussion, when we talk about year-end, we're talking about fiscal year-end, which does not end until March 31st. So we really are got 5 more months to go before our fiscal year is over. The other objective was to completely fund our operating reserves with 6 months of reserves of normal operating expenses, which requires $210,000. And the third goal was to reduce delinquencies. So going back to the capital reserves, I just want everyone to know that each year we deposit approximately $54,000 into that account to keep that sustainable for the next 20 years. As we add assets, of course, that amount that we have to put into that account will grow every year. But for now, all those goals have been met. So if we could go to the next slide, we'll talk about the delinquencies just a little bit. Again, we're end of third quarter, but in this case, these reports are reflecting our calendar year third quarter. So if we look at 2019, the annual delinquencies that we had for just our annual assessments were about 11%. This year, for 2020, we reduced that to 5.5%. So we've reduced our delinquencies, and we appreciate everyone who's paid on time or set up payment plans and got your money in. It's really been a great effort by everybody. And again, Joyce, Libby, thank you for all your work. DRM, thank you for your work in helping make this happen. Additionally, in 2019, our receivable delinquencies were $165,000, our total receivables, which includes our current year, past year's assessments, legal fees, fines, court costs, all lumped into one big category. But as you see, in 2019, it was $165,000. This year, it's $108,000. So again, we've made good progress in reducing our delinquencies. If we go to the next slide, please. I wanted to run through a quick down and dirty look at our financial position for y'all, just a simple look at it. Using a cash flow analysis. Again, remember that our fiscal year does not end until March 31st. You'll see in the very first line a starting balance of $568,000, and that's how much money was actually in the bank as of September 30th. We use that $568,000, or I do, as a starting point, because from this point forward, we have very little revenue. The last 6 months of the year, typically we see very little to no income. The majority of our revenue comes in the first 6 months of the year. So again, back to the $568,000 as our starting point. As we saw on the previous slide, we need $85,000 at the year end to properly fund our capital reserves. Our operating reserves were $210,000, as we showed on the previous slide. We have 6 months left from September 30th to get us all the way through March 31st. Another $210,000 we project that we'll spend. And we have one capital improvement project left that we'd like to get done. That's path improvements, lake erosion control problems, and probably during this off season when the path and lake are not getting used as much, is a great time to do that. And I've estimated that to cost us about $55,000 to make those improvements. So at the end of the day, by the end of this fiscal year, we should have a balance left of about $18,000 in the black, which, it's about as close to zero as we could get, based on how difficult a year we had this year with the COVID. And anyway, we're doing well, guys, and we really appreciate all of y'all doing your part in making this happen. If we would go on to the next slide. Before we move on to that slide, though, I do want to share a few additional numbers with you. Not financial numbers, but numbers that you'll probably find important. Compliance issues are always a hot subject with us and with all of our members. This year, we sent out approximately 200 letters regarding CCR compliance issues. So we are on top of it as well as we can be. Given the COVID issue, the pandemic has really minimized or slowed down the number of inspections we could make, but still yet we managed to send out 200 letters for compliance issues. But on a more positive note, I'll share with you that this year the ARC processed over 100 requests for alterations or changes to the exterior of a home, compared to only 30 last year. So to those of you who complied with the process, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to get the paperwork sent in and let us get that approved to keep our neighborhood looking beautiful, Riverwood beautiful. That reduction or increase from 30 to 100 partly due to more people being at home, I'm sure, but I do believe that this demonstrates that our communications are working and that we are improving in our compliance areas. So thank you to all those that did follow the process and ask for approval before starting your work. Now we'll move into this strategic plan. I want to just take a minute to look at the development of a strategic plan and how the financial pieces relate to it. So you're looking at a chart that you've probably seen before. The DNA connected frameworks, how that strategic plan all comes together and works. As we all know, we have a strategic plan that we put together 2 years ago. We're in year 2 of the plan with another year to go, but the strategic plan alone won't get the job done. In order to get the job done, we've got to have strategic funding, strategic people, and strategic priorities. At this point, as we discussed, we have a strategic plan. Our financial situation puts us in a position to provide the strategic funding. Strategic people, through our improved communications, we've increased the interest and the participation level outside of the board. I think this is evident when we look at the number of candidates that we had opting for a board position this year compared to what we've had in the past. The number of ballots that we had returned this year, 240 some ballots. The number of members that are participating in this meeting tonight all represent our increased awareness and increased interest in what's going on with our community. So the number of strategic people involved has definitely increased. Our strategic priorities, through your feedback from the survey that I believe Steve will talk about in a few minutes, through your questions that you ask, the board can use that information to prioritize things that are most important to our membership. So I think we've got all the pieces in place. So with all those necessary elements coming together, we'll be able to better address our priorities and your concerns. So I appreciate you and thank you very much, and appreciate the vote of confidence to serve another year. So I'll turn this back over to Steve now. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to provide a few updates in terms of communications. Brian Miller will share in just a little bit some of the strategic initiatives from the past couple of years, and one of those has been improving communications and increasing community engagement. And so this last year, or rather just the last couple of months, we had an opportunity to conduct a survey. This is the second annual survey of Riverwood residents. And so this year, as you can see, we sent the survey to just over 1,100 people. We had a 26% completion rate, so 390 people completed the surveys. And compared to last year, that was an increase of 70%. So we appreciate everybody taking some time to provide that feedback. And similar to some of the feedback that we heard last year, we had a great quote. So you can see here, Riverwood is a hidden jewel close to everything, yet hidden in between neighborhoods away from the hustle and bustle. And so there's a lot of pride in Riverwood, and we certainly saw that in some of the feedback. Now, one of the questions that we asked this last year as well, was how long do people anticipate living in Riverwood? And the percentage of people who said they plan to be there for the long haul has gone up. So it's definitely a great community to settle down in for the long haul. Now, on the next slide, we'll see, again, one of the initiatives is to increase community engagement. And so one of the questions that we asked is, would you like to see more community events? And things like Community Day or the food trucks out by the lake. And you can see in blue, it's a very significant jump, up to 72% who said yes. So there is a significant increase in the percentage of people who want to see those kinds of events. And so things like the food truck Fridays are certainly a great way to do that. Now, on the next slide, we asked this question on last year's survey, and how would you rate the communication of the HOA to the residents? And that has increased significantly. And so you can see in the blue, that's the percentage of people who would rate it as great. And so that went from just over 25% to almost 40%. And so a lot of initiatives to communicate more effectively, more consistently, to keep everybody aware of what's going on in the community. And then one of the other communication initiatives was launching the new website. And so when asked how many people have been to the website, the new website in the last 6 months, 70% said yes. So if you haven't been there, go to riverwood901.com because you don't want to be in the 30%. So the next slide, we have some statistics. And so we've had almost 4,700 visits to the website. So we're getting lots of activity there. And it's also not only designed to be a tool for the community, but also for people who are interested in maybe moving to Riverwood. But you can see there from the numbers, there's been a lot of activity, and the lion's share is on the homepage and the resident resources page. Now, another part of the communication initiative was on Facebook. And so right now we have just over 300 people who follow and like the page. We've had 114 posts. So we would love for you to stay connected through Facebook. And so go to Facebook after this meeting, of course, and just type in Riverwood 901 and be sure to follow. And so we're excited just to see the increased engagement, and we appreciate everybody's feedback on the survey. And now I'd like to invite Brian Miller to share a little bit more about the strategic plan and share some updates there.
Well, I want to add my thanks for joining us tonight, and I hope you're feeling like you're really getting a sense for movement and momentum in our community, and that's really a lot of what a strategic plan is designed to do. The alignment of mission and vision, as well as recognizing the goals of the community, is really a good part of what the strategic plan should embody. I'm very thankful. While I'm not a member of the board, I get invited in to assist the board in this process of strategic planning. And I think it's important that you know that really my role is more to help develop and implement this strategic plan. But the role of the board is to own and execute the plan, which again, I want to commend them. They have done that, and that's going to be evidenced in the presentation here tonight. And while I do consulting with both for-profit and nonprofit organizations, really this is my contribution as a 23-year resident of Riverwood to be able to volunteer and assist the board in this process. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this alignment piece, we are guided clearly by our mission. And really every organization's mission ought to reflect their reason to exist, those things that are unchanging, that are foundational to the organization. And the strategic plan is a reflection of that. Next slide is our 1,000-day vision statement. Why 1,000 days? It's time bound. We know exactly where we are. Year 1, year 2, and really 1,000 days approximates the 3 years. As I mentioned, it's aspirational. It represents growth and change that every organization should go through. And so, again, I hope as you see a lot of the communication that'll come to you over the years, it ought to align very easily. Do I see the mission in this? Do I see the fulfillment of the vision in our communication and in our action? Next slide. So you'll see in this, again, this is year 2, and we have 5 areas, key result areas that we call them, that we're working through. And really most organizations stick within 4 to 6. You really can't effectively manage more than that. And yet underneath those 5 key result areas are 3 to 5 goals for each. So that's quite a bit that the board has committed to pursuing over this 3-year or 1,000-day strategic plan. And again, I think you'll know that this cannot be accomplished in just a monthly board meeting. There is a tremendous amount of work and effort that the board invests outside of the board meeting to ensure that these initiatives move forward. Again, the goal tonight is merely to give you a brief update on the progress for these key items. Next slide. So what you'll see here again in year 2, we've checked the box on several things that says we've made substantial progress in these areas. And hopefully you've seen that, the great work that Wayfind Marketing has done in this brand identity, the website, our newsletter, use of social media, all of those things have really been a part of what was begun in year 2 that has been carried out in year 1, carried out in year 2. The common area signage really is a priority that I think will be considered as the board meets in December, as you've already heard from Brandon, to really review this current plan and then make the plans for the next year. Next slide, please. CCR Compliance, which Greg has addressed, and obviously this is one of the key contributors to the value of our community, that we're doing those things that really maintain standards. He gave some great information on the collection process, also this process to encourage responding to our home maintenance violations. Again, we want to continue to look at what is the way that we can most effectively communicate and enforce. And so this review, consolidating and update CCRs will be an ongoing process. The next slide deals with leadership development. Again, a couple of checks that you see in these 5 areas under leadership development. As you went to the website to evaluate who you might choose as a board member, there were qualifications that we asked folks to respond to. I've already mentioned that in December, this board member orientation and training will take place, but clearly several areas here that need to be pursued. And the board will be looking at these. And again, this is an engagement piece. The more people that will step up, not only through board service, but committees, task forces, whatever, the more things that we really can pursue to enhance the value of our community. Then our last slide relates to the management company role and responsibilities. Again, a lot of progress there. 3 of our 4 boxes there through really a lot of great leadership of Greg and the rest of the board, and the 3 areas that are checked. But it really is probably one of the most unique and important relationships between the board and the management company. And I think it really is reflective of a continuous improvement process. How do we do that well? That again is designed to effectively enhance the value of our community. A lot of these things I hope align with what you saw in Steve's report over what are the things that are important to you and the things that are important to the board as well. Then our last slide deals with the amenities and common areas. A couple of boxes checked there. Again, Greg mentioned some of those. You'll hear a little bit more from Dr. Taxley shortly about utilization of our community assets and a couple of areas here that are still under consideration. So a lot of the Q&A that came in dealt with some of these areas, and this will be the period that our board president, Paul Westfall, will communicate with you about some of the categories that our Q&A questions fell under. Thank you.
Good evening, neighbors. We have received or will receive questions on topics of discussion from 3 different areas. 1, feedback from the survey, and then questions received through the website and prior to tonight's meeting. Questions or comments that that time does not permit addressing in tonight's meeting, as well as questions that may come from this meeting. The website, as was mentioned earlier, the website portal for questions will remain open for a period of 2 weeks so that we can address those as well. Comments from the survey and questions fell into 2 major categories: property values and safety. Many of these questions are being discussed and addressed in monthly meetings as the board pursues the 3-year strategic plan. Many of these major issues will be addressed in the upcoming board retreat and orientation meeting in December and become priorities that the board will pursue in the upcoming year. The board is taking steps to fully vet and understand the most effective best practices, options, and how they fit within and complement the framework of our mission and vision before implementation. Here are the questions by major category: property values, renter policies, de-annexation, CCR compliance, safety, signage, cameras, and speed bumps. In reference to renter policies, there are none, because we treat every property with the same criteria of our CCR compliance. In reference to the de-annexation, I must mention that in the last 2-3 years, I had many discussions with some of you, and a lot of you have signed some of the surveys that I distributed, and it was under a different legislative environment where the amendment 1011 was decided on the House in Nashville, and the Carter-Watson bill that wanted to speak in reference to areas that had been egregiously annexed 12 and 14 years ago was never finalized, unfortunately, and so we understand that de-annexation at this point is a mute area, and we need to develop the relationships with members of the House and Senate in Tennessee to to see who is sympathetic to our cause, if that's what we still intend to do in the future. And as a result, hopefully create legislation that favors that. The CCR compliance, we feel that clear and consistent messaging is at the starting point. We now have the Communication Foundation to do that. We continue to learn more about best practices that are effective in our unique community, and will continue our efforts to enforce our CCRs to the extent necessary to bring about more consistent compliance. And we feel that less than 10% of our members are rental property owners, with less than half of those creating compliance issues. In reference to signage, this board recognizes that our community needs new signage with clear and consistent friendly messaging. This will be addressed in our upcoming meeting to determine the potential of making this item one of our priorities for the upcoming year. Cameras, a highly sensitive and complex topic with many pros and cons depending on who you talk to. We continue to learn more about the subject from outside resources of the pros and cons and how they may apply to our unique community. Speed bumps. The board is neither against or for speed bumps, as the city and county requires a petition from the residents living on the street before it will render a decision. Thank you.
Good evening to my amazing, wonderful neighbors. I love saying that. I love to work with my beautiful neighbors. And this year was a very sad year because I didn't get to see all of the neighbors this year at Community Day. In the month of April, the board was faced with a huge decision that they had to make in reference to information that we were receiving in reference to the coronavirus and information from CDC and our local government. So it was decided upon from our board that we would cancel Community Day this year, but we plan to come back strong in the year of 2021. With that news, and again, it saddened me because I truly love being with all of my beautiful neighbors. Our board member, Mike Foster, came up with a wonderful idea in the month of May that we could probably have a food truck Friday. And this is something that we've never done in our community. And I thought it was such an amazing, amazing event. So I certainly want to give you many applause, Mike, for that great idea, because it truly brought our neighbors together. And that's what it's about, living in an environment where you feel we can come together and celebrate one another. And we did it in a safe environment, and that what matters most. But please know that we will be working hard leading up into the year 2021 in September to have another Community Day if it's safe and if we can have it based off of CDC and our local government. We will always listen to that. But in the planning of our Community Day, we need volunteers. So if you are interested, please, please hear my heart. Please sign up to be a part of just Community Day events. This is cleaning up the neighborhood. We've even had ideas of having a trick or treat around the lake. I think, and we're going to have other ideas. And we're certainly going to continue with our Food Truck Friday when it gets a little warmer. But we need a committee for that. So if you are interested, please go to our website and let us know, and I will be in contact with you. Thank you. At this time, we will have our president, Wes Paul, come back up for closure.
Thank you, Dr. Tankson. Dear fellow members and ladies and gentlemen, I would like us all to thank the board for their service in 2020 and congratulate the new board to serve you in 2021 with the addition of Keith Yarowich. And so I also want to give thanks to Teresa Waltz, who will continue to help us with her liaison activities with our Ambassador Security Patrol. And we thank her for that. So I also want to thank John Criswell, our communications chair, and of course, Greg Ballou and Mike Foster, as well as Mr. Miller and Mr. Phipps, with his team of getting this meeting executed, planned and executed. Wonderful. I want to thank Brian particularly for his service to our community, being a homeowner here as well, and in guiding us through, for the last 2 years, almost 3 years, guiding us through the planning and execution of our strategic plan. And he does it pro bono, a good investment in the community. Thank you. At this point, we should also give a shout out to Joan Hendrick and her husband, who for the last, for the 3 seasons, selected 6 recipients for each season to receive the Beautification Award. And we thank her for that, because this program is very important in our opinion. It progressively enhances the community, the aesthetics of the community, and it's all important to obviously reflect that in our values of our homes. Without further ado, this meeting is now adjourned, and I thank you very much.